Welcome back to NeuroDiverse Christian Couples. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Dan.
And at the end of today, we'll play the game. Does Dan remember the tagline? Let me give you a little bit of hint. It has to do with hopes and futures and not being alone on the journey. So go ahead and prime that pump for you.
That's a lot of words to mix up.
I know. I know. Okay, y'all. So what we decided to do today, Dan and I are in a very busy time of life. So we could not come up with a topic for today. So we went to the internet and we asked you guys. We went on all of our Facebooks and social and said,
where we equals you.
Where we equals Stephanie, for us and the greater good. And I asked, what are some questions that you would like to know or like to have us answer? So I want to talk about some that we're not going to answer, but let you know that there are some shows coming up. So there were about 4 or 5 questions specifically related to co-parenting. And we will be interviewing Jeremy and Charity Rochford. They will be on the show because they have written a chapter in our new book coming out later this year on parenting and co-parenting together and all things neurodiversity and with neurodiverse neurodivergent kids. So all of the parenting questions I have put into the Jeremy and Charity show. We also had a question about chronic illness and autoimmune issues and things of that nature. I will be interviewing someone by the name of Jana, who will be talking about building resilience and some of the things that have to do with chronic illness and neurodiverse relationships. So that is a show coming. So if you don't hear that one answered, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different questions. So we're just going to go down the list and do the best we can with the questions that we got.
And I'm going to make it up.
Dan's going to make it up, but you need to be truthful.
Well, I always make up the truth.
You always make up the truth. Yeah, Dan's got a cold, and apparently them cold meds are playing around with your mind. Okay. I'll start, I guess, with a positive one. What are tools you have found as a couple that have helped you as a neurodiverse couple? So I'll let you go first.
So I got the benefit of us pre-reading on this not 5 minutes ago on a walk. And
so you needed processing time.
Yep.
That is the secret. Got to give the processing time.
And I still don't remember the exact name of it, but.
Well, I don't like the author, so I don't want to promote the book. So, but you can talk about the tool.
This was 2020 or 2021. I can't remember.
I'll help you. It was a Marriage Dynamics Institute class.
Okay.
Okay.
And they had a book that was really interesting. And one of the sections in that book was an inventory of type things of what do you want to do together. And It was a list, your favorite things to do or what you wish you could do together.
And it was really long. There was like 5 or 6 pages. And whatever the activity was, there was like a 0 and to -2 scale.
They gave a lot of examples, everything from things like fencing, which we probably would never engage in.
No.
We tried archery. We tried archery. That was on the list. But anyway, we ended up with, going on a walk, doing things outside. So my list was doing things outside. Your list had some other things on it. But we ended up buying a bike out of that. So you had a bike to ride, and I'm still riding my really, really, really old bike.
Which I have said he should get a new bike, but he won't to.
Which I'm too cheap to replace.
Yep.
But what that ended up doing was it created a pattern in us where we set aside some window during the week and it was really just a matter of hours that we were very intentional that we are going to pick one of those activities and go do those things.
Because Dan connects more through activities. There's a lot of questions that are going to come up about connecting. And so I think it's important to understand that you may not both feel connected to each other at the same time. So if we're doing something and we're talking and I feel connected to Dan, I mean, I think you could ruin it by like, Dan, do you feel connected to me right now? And he'd be like, no more than I did 5 minutes or an hour ago.
That's true even right now.
Answer that. Don't ask that question. So what's important is if you're finding things where you as the neurotypical feel like you're connecting, it doesn't matter if he's doesn't feel connected in the same activity. Is he willing? Is there a good attitude? Are you feeling connected? I think that's really important because Dan feels more connected when we do biking and hiking and listening to a podcast and talking about it, which I enjoy, but I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, I feel really connected to you. And we do
Right,
that.
it's not a Barbie moment.
No, it's not. There's a song from a Barbie movie. It's copyrighted. Can't sing it.
Really old Barbie.
Really old, about feeling connected. So I think that's a good tool. You could kind of make your own. You could kind of, because I don't want to promote the author because his other book I don't like. So you could just look up a bunch of different activities, because in most neurodiverse couples, if one party has a lot of special interest and passion interest that they like to do alone, maybe they would invite you into it, but it's maybe not something that you're particularly interested in, or there's been so much hurt over the time spent in that, maybe you don't want to be involved in that activity. It's kind of creating some new things together. So that tool,
And that's what we ended up doing, was we both agreed that this is something
Right.
we could do, which is how you ended up with a bike.
Right, because my last bike had a banana seat and cute little pom-poms coming out the side. So that's the last time I rode a bike. But so having mutual activities, the way that worked is, again, it had the activity name, like let's say archery, there was a 0, it went to +2 or +5, and then it went to -5.
Right, kayaking was on the list, and I think that got negative on your side.
Right. So if either person put it in the negative category, then that's not one to consider. But if something netted 0 into the positive for both parties, is maybe got put on the consideration list. And then once you had 5 or 6 things to choose from, then pick one and start experimenting. Try it on.
Yeah. And I think the important
works.
thing was the consistency. We decided that we were going to set aside.
Yeah, because so much about the activity is that that started, we were in that same path of creating a Sabbath and creating rest and mentally stopping work, stopping choring, stopping all the things that we do with the businesses and work, and being intentional about doing relational things and activity things. So I think that was a good tool. We continue, because another question had to do with maintenance. And so what do we do? I mean, we're continuing to learn, read books. Dan has no choice but to go to conferences because of my job. But we speak at a lot of conferences. So then we're, attending the conference, which usually, there's something in there about building relationships.
But so we're also a coach at least 3 times a year. We're
Right.
leading, we're mediating, we're moderating some kind of conversation, which means a book that we've read 6 times, I'm reading 7 times.
Right.
And all the
repetition.
That repetition brings it keeps it current. You're not as easy to forget a thing, and that kernel that you had the last time is now greater than it once was, and that thing that you didn't recognize the first time you read that book is now recognized the second time you read that book.
I'm on time 35 or 36 of thanks for the feedback. I still get something new out of it, because like if you're in a space where you're triggered or you peeling off a layer of something and learning, and then you go back again and you're still in a new space. I mean, I don't know how the Holy Spirit works with y'all, but it feels like every time yay, I've accomplished something, it's like, okay, and your prize for getting to this level is to learn something new and be stretched and
read that
more.
thing again.
It's like, oh man. So repetition is key. Sometimes our clients are like, give me something new, give me a new tool, give me a new book. And it's like, well, using the same tool or taking your tools and getting really consistent with them is sometimes enough.
Really, we've settled on a handful. We've got a handful of Wilder books. We've got the Thanks for the Feedback book.
We got Scazzeros.
And the Scazzeros. And really, if you think about it, it is those 3 authors.
A couple of Gottmans thrown into there. That's not heretical.
Right. But I mean, but if you was to condense it, it really does center around the amalgam of those 3 authors. Yeah.
Because you've heard us mention a lot emotionally healthy relationships. You've heard us talk about the Wilder stuff. Oh, another tool. It's been several years since we really started being in clients, I call it a logistics meeting. We've gotten good about syncing our calendars, not either
syncing.
What'd I say?
Seeking.
I said seeking. Okay. Syncing. We were syncing our calendars because it used to be, and I hear this a lot from the husbands that I work with, is like it's my time. So I'm going to do my day, do my work day, fill in all the things, and then whatever's left I'm giving to my family. And that's not really intentional relationship. So a few years ago, we started, I keep an actual paper and pen calendar. Dan keeps a Google Calendar. And what's on the agenda for this week? What are our priorities? I call them anchors. What are the things that can't change? Certain things in the workday, meetings, board meetings, something like that. And then it's like, okay, before we put anything else on our personal calendars, where's the us time first? And then fill in with the rest. Now, we're in a little bit easier space because we don't have young children. I mean, there was a time it was much harder when there was activities and scouts
Right,
and
when we were going to
church
all the
and
stuff.
yeah, so we had to kind of sometimes be creative about that that time. Right now, since we're in an empty nest stage, we have more time, but syncing our calendars, being very intentional about that. And then we do kind of like a little bit of novel stuff every once in a while. I'm usually finding a new group of cards, communication starters or adventures in dating cards, stuff like that, just to do something novel every now and then. But I think you made a good point. We've got a handful of things that work for us,
Right.
and we're doing it consistently.
And we have a couple of shows that we watch, right? We've got the Star Wars stuff
That's Dan's pick.
right? And we don't, it's not a lot. I mean, if you think about how much we actually watch television,
We don't watch a lot of
it is not a lot. So, I mean, we were watching the other day and then this Secrets of the Octopus showed up. And that sounded so cool. But somebody else
I've watched bridges. I have watched how to engineer bridges. I don't know if I'm doing the octopus. I don't know. We also have the secrets of the tombs or something in
the
Egypt.
Egypt thing.
Yeah,
But
I feel like I'm being stretched on staying awake that long. I feel like I'm sacrificing giving.
But the point is, you probably could count our mutual interests on probably one hand.
Yeah, we don't have a lot.
From the books that we're engaged in, there's probably a handful at best, and we read those over and over. Mutual interest is, activities is probably one or two. We're either on a walk, we're bike riding, or we've gone on a walk in North Georgia. I mean, really, it really doesn't deviate much from walking and bike riding.
And so one of Dan's interests that I can sometimes geek out with him on is being in Hebrew right now. There are some things I enjoy learning about that. I can't go into depth, but if there was something really cool in class or a podcast sometimes that y'all have to listen to as part of your classwork, and you think is of interest to me, I like to listen to that and then talk about it.
Yeah, especially if when we went on
when we drive, we are podcasting
right,
like
and
crazy.
that's a good. It generates good conversation.
Yeah, we got a 15-hour drive ahead of us.
Yeah,
when we go to
Omaha.
Gosh, we'll have to like load up the Bible Project and the Israel,
Bible
and the Israel Bible and all of that. Okay, so those are some tools. How has learning about your neurodiversity as a couple helped you? I know what I'm going to say. I'll let you go first.
So I answered this. I think I said, if I can remember what I said when we were walking earlier. I think my original response on this was such that it stopped the sting of the shame so much from years gone by. If I look back without that idea, it really is more of a jerk, at least.
Oh, I don't think I ever called you a jerk.
No, but that's why I put at least in there.
Okay.
Because
I may have used another term.
Yeah,
every once in a while.
And because we've got Christian, I won't say.
Yeah, don't say it.
I don't always.
I might have said that one a couple of times.
But the point is it created the opportunity for there to be less of a motivation behind much of that, which took the sting out of it. It doesn't mean it felt different to you, but in hindsight, it says, you know what, maybe that motivation wasn't as, maybe there's an alternative explanation. Maybe that's the better way to put it. There's another contributing factor. As far as going forward, I don't know that I really think about it a whole lot.
You're married to me, so you have no choice but to learn more about autism and autistic brains and autistic learning.
I still think about us first, and I don't really stick the word neurodiverse in front of the word us unless it's written on a paper.
Except for we say it about once a week.
Yeah, but I still don't think about it. It's just us. It's just you, us, us.
I think it helped me by knowing the things that Dan was doing or not doing was not intentional. I've said it a bunch of times. I have never doubted that Dan is a good person. I've never doubted that he's a good man. I think that's what makes it harder and more hurtful when this person that I love that I think is a good person and I thought was a person of integrity is not following through on things or not showing up when I need him. Like, what the heck? And so while it didn't erase the past, it certainly gave me a new lens of the past. And I think started the path toward healing. And then Dan, um, it was a non-event when you were diagnosed. You weren't argumentative or defensive or blame shifty. It's like, okay, so now that we know this, what do we do? And what are we going to do different? How are we going to make it better? So I very much appreciated that. I'm very blessed that was our experience. If you feel like you have trauma that you have needed to heal from, I'll let you go next. But the next question was asked, like, what brings healing? And I think for me, I guess knowing about it did help because it gave me the new lens, like I said before. And then it's hard to heal if a behavior keeps continuing. Now, that doesn't mean that Dan and I have never had another argument or social communication faux pas. Heck, we had that podcast that we talked to you about feedback where we got lost in Costco and just totally explained how we were not going to do that again. And then went to the store the next day. And as soon as we parted from each other, I know my thought was, oh my gosh, we did it again. We do not know where to meet again. And we just talked about this yesterday. So from the stuff that was very traumatic for me, Dan being willing to talk about that with me, I know it's not your favorite. Sometimes you don't respond well. I mean, but like 75% of the time you do. Sometimes it's like, oh crap, we got to talk about that again. So those times aren't so awesome. But when you let me explain or let me tell you the why and you don't get triggered, that helps me a lot, even though I know you don't enjoy those conversations, but we don't have them often because something weird out of the blue just triggers me. Or
like you went to sleep and then you woke up and you're angry.
Well, that doesn't happen that often. It does happen. It does happen. I guess I'm processing in my sleep. He's like,
guess.
dang, I can make you mad just by sleeping next to you.
No. I didn't make you mad at all. You made you mad. Pretending I'm me. Let's be clear.
You were you in the dream.
Let's be clear about who made who mad.
Right. So, oh yes, sometimes there's nighttime processing of things, but healing, talking about it, and when we still have our faux pas or our moments that can still sting a little bit because they are more of an anomaly and not a consistent thing.
They're typically not that deep either.
No.
They're circumstantial.
And the last time I lost my mind was April 21st of 2023. No, 2022. 22. Yes. 22. That's the last I lost my ever loving mind.
Are you sure it wasn't 21?
Oh, it was 21. Oh, good for me. It's been 3 years. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I am 3 years from my last anger episode. And you're like
22, we were already in the house.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why I know the date, it was because with all of our tree trauma, that was the day the second tree fell. So wow, we just had the anniversary of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
We didn't burn anything either.
No.
We usually burn something.
Gosh. Okay. So that was the last one. And the gist of that story was something bad had happened, and Dan was explaining to me why I shouldn't feel a certain way. And that lit a fire within me.
I held the phone up like this.
Well, I was so angry when I walked past the mirror, I scared myself with my face. So it was, if that gives you a, when I say I lost my mind, I lost my mind.
Yeah, everybody in the cul-de-sac heard you talking on the phone.
I'm sure everybody in the rental house street heard me talking on the phone. But the difference was after that happened and I lost my mind, like we were celebrating that night that we were packing up to go back home, but that would not be the case. And you had gone out and bought like steak and like all the stuff we were supposed to have a date night. And you came in, and what was different because I heard the truck come in. I was like, yeah, he's going to put all the groceries away and then he's going to forget, that I'm in the house. Well, what was different is I heard the car door open. I heard the house open. I heard nothing come inside and footsteps coming to the room where I was. And you scooped me up and gave me a hug. See, I was brand new. That was a new behavior. And you said, I'm sorry. And then I apologized for all the things
Well,
I said when I was
that
angry.
particular moment was pivotal because it was what's a good word? It was emblematic, maybe is a good word. Emblematic of what you had spoken of in days gone by, of me being apologetic for someone else
Yes, because he was
instead of
defending the tree people.
no, there's a difference between defending and not having enough evidence to condemn. And that's the subtlety was I can't say I understand,
But you
there's not
told me how to feel.
right. And in that moment I recognize, you know what? That probably wasn't a good move.
Mm-mm.
And it was pivotal. I think that for us, that Scream Fest.
It was. I'm being honest and open and real. It was a crazy 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was laced with some.
That was not my best Christ self. See, we hadn't started Wilder yet.
Yeah, there was no EHR going on in
that. I was in my big six emotions, all of them.
all of them.
All of them at one time.
Yes. In every language. You were tree stay and everything.
Yeah, it was a bad day.
But it was pivotal because I had it was I recognized that this is the moment that I did it again, but I had enough knowledge of we had enough conversation that I could recognize the reality of what was happening in very real time. It wasn't real enough time to be predictive, but it was real enough time to be in the moment of, yep, she's yelling at me and the world at the moment. And here are some things in the now that I can do, which number one is shut up.
Yeah.
And number two is when I finally get home, because that moment was, I think I'm standing on the steps outside. You're back at Beachland, I think. And I still had to go do groceries. We still didn't have any food to eat. So there was still chores to happen. So I had to go do things, wait for now a guy to come clean up the yard with a tree, with a tree in the cul-de-sac.
I had to call State Farm again and start another claim.
It pulled power out of the neighborhood. And the repercussions of that was beyond just us, and had to consume all of that and then go home after all of that happened and say, yeah, I effed up again.
Yeah. But the repair was different and coming in immediately and doing it. And then by you doing that, it totally softened all the rest of like, wait till he gets home. We're going to have round two. Just wait. But your proactive approach of apology, acceptance, and then that gave me, I was going to apologize anyway. I didn't need for you to apologize, for me apologize. But that like all of the anger that was bubbling, it like put a blanket over that fire. Because what I was really was in deep despair. We thought we were going home. We were in the midst of packing up the rental house. And now in 7 days, we don't have a place to live. It was pretty big.
Out to be true, but we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. So, as far as we were concerned, we were moving home the first week of May. This tree happens. Just another claim. Our neighbors are mad at us because it's inconveniencing them. Our tree falling has inconvenienced them. And we had to not have the dog for a really long time. It was a really bad day. And so for then to provide me with emotional, so at first there was no emotional support, but then there was emotional support. And then we actually salvaged the day, had dinner, and we actually continued with date night, because you were like, and then the look on your face was like, I thought this was done. I didn't think what happened? Like, how did this happen? How are we still having a date?
I didn't never remember that if you'd have had it.
Because your face was like, what are you like? We're what? We're still what?
Yeah, I had off the whole evening and the rest of the
Like,
week.
the whole rest of the week is gone. It's devastated. Had you not made a repair, it would have been. It would have been a long drive to Texas.
Well, we were going to North Carolina first.
We went to North Carolina to
and
Kentucky
then
to
Texas.
yeah, that was well, it was a long drive to Texas because we went the long way. Um, Emotional connection. I think we already talked about that. We're not connected at the same time.
Yes.
You might not get connected at the same time, and it's okay. Is it ever productive or healing to revisit the hurts? My husband says, why? What's the point? You can't change the past. I say for if there's been trauma, yes, you need to revisit the past. Now, it doesn't mean going over every little detail, every little thing.
But it shouldn't be a regular whipping.
No.
It should have some redeeming activity involved in it.
Yeah. So a technique I like to use is Leslie Vernick gave that there are 5 or 6 different levels that trust can be broken. And so I do think if someone is going to be repentant or exhibit godly sorrow for what they've done, I think you need to know what was done, but also how do you build the bridge? Because if let's say one of the buckets is reliability and dependability, which is follow through, and another one is compassionate care. So if there are 6 different ways you can break trust, and okay, I'll just say it's dependability. And so Dan decides, okay, I'm going to build the dependability and reliability bucket. I'm going to follow through and I'm going to do what I say and all of that. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's helping my trust bucket there, but that does nothing towards compassionate care. You'd be like, you're changing the goalpost on me. You're making me jump through another hoop. Well, no, there was 6 different buckets. So I think you have to have some kind of conversation. You probably want to do this with a coach or a counselor to do it in a shorter fashion, because it's not just a whipping of what you've done to bring me pain. It's like, and here are some steps that will build trust or repair in this area. And here are some steps and some trust that you can repair in that area. Now, there are some things you're not ever going to get back. If there was a wedding day or a honeymoon or a hospital visit or something like that, or a big family vacation, something where something went wrong. I mean, you're never going to get that moment back. So you've got to grieve that and let it go. It happened. It was ruined. It caused pain. If you've talked about it and there's been a repair made, you got to stop bringing it up all the time. But sometimes it'll like hit, just a trigger will hit. And so like, I don't talk about the past hardly ever with Dan unless something got triggered in me. Either maybe it might be a movie or it could just be like out of the blue, and then process it through and we'll get through it. So as we do that, and
I think as long as you're uncovering the layers of you and not rehearsing the circumstance, just to rehearse the circumstance, you're probably in a good spot there.
Yeah.
Because you can be hurt in multiple layers and you're only ready maybe to reveal some of that at certain times. So here's the layer of this, and maybe there's 6 layers of that particular topic, and then you move on to this other thing. So as long as that is what you're talking about, then yeah, it should be surfaced, because that's the only way you get to the pearl. But otherwise, you're
just nursing and rehearsing is not going to be therapeutic for any reason.
That actually causes callousness. The other person now is just saying, I'm done. I'm not hearing anything else you said, because there is no redeeming in this. You're not getting any better, and I'm hearing the same old whipping post that I had before.
And if you are nursing and rehearsing these same things over and over again, that's also dangerous, because you start painting the whole marriage with that paintbrush. And so like part of the work we've done with Wilder's studies is telling positive stories as part of your healing too. Not that you're saying, oh, well, this really bad traumatic thing happened and this good thing happened, so it cancels it out. I'm not saying that at all. But you also have to remember positive things too, or you'll stay in that negative cycle. You'll stay in the trauma part of your brain. And that's not helpful to you either. So if you're going to do any kind of stuff with going back into the past, I think you need to do that with a therapist, counselor, coach, somebody who's going to help you navigate through it just sitting down and talking about it over and over and over again, I don't think that that's going to be productive.